Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mr. Rocks. Today we're going to go ahead and add some function to our project. If I run the project right now, what I'm going to find is that this guy is not going to do much. And so all I have right now is a play area, a menu area, and an information area. They simply appear on the screen. We added these variables up on top between the class and the main function. So when I begin my program, all I'm doing right now is calling a function called set areas, and that is going to set the play area, info area, and main area, or menu area. Now what I'm going to do is come back to my FLA file, and I'm going to choose a polystar, and I'm going to create a little star here, and I will change its color to, I don't know, let's say purple. And actually I think I'll just change the inside color to purple. And I'll make this guy longer by clicking on this and dragging it out. Now, I didn't mention this in the last video, but these are all movie clips, and I'm going to turn this into movie clip in just a moment. I'll make it a little bit more visually interesting. I will choose, let's say, bright yellow and make a circle here. I will choose another circle, and I will make this circle maybe red. So it just is a little bit visually more interesting, and as I drag this over and put him inside, I can take this whole guy now and maybe shrink him down a little bit. Looks like it wouldn't be bad if I tilted him, shrank him down, dragged him over into here, and now he's on my ship. I'm going to go ahead and make this ship now a movie clip. I right click, convert to symbol, and now I'm going to call this enemy. And enemy, notice the registration is in the middle. I'm going to export this for Actionscript as enemy, and I will say OK. Now I could click on the pencil here, or if I look back in the library and select enemy, I can click on this information and again click on this pencil, and that will give me an Actionscript file for enemy. So you can see I've already got a couple of things in here. I've got speed, which is a variable. I've added an event listener, and what I'm doing in this particular Actionscript file is I'm taking the x coordinate and I'm adding to that math cosine times speed. Now speed is 10. It could be anything we want. The greater the speed, the further this is going to move along the x-axis and again the y-axis. The math cosine is taking the rotation of the enemy, and it's calculating a distance, how far do I want to move it, depending on its angle of orientation. 180 times math, let's see, this should actually be, divided by 180 times math pi. This is how I get pi in Actionscript. I use the math class. Capital PI is for the constant 3.14. And then 180 is the number of degrees. So I'm converting from degrees, which is the rotation is always given in degrees, but the cosine wants to take as its input radian value. And so I'm converting it to radians, sending it to the math cosine. It's giving me a value, and depending on the angle of orientation, I'm going to move in the x direction and the y direction accordingly. Cosine for horizontal, sine for vertical, just like we have the x coordinate for horizontal and the y coordinate for vertical. If I were to run this right now and come back to my main class over here. Oh, one other thing I think would be nice is if I came back into my enemy and I simply shrank this guy down because he's pretty large. When I do that, I want to make sure that I line up that circle again with my registration mark. So when I pivot the enemy, it's going to pivot right around that point. Now, if I were to drag an enemy out on the stage, let's see what happens. Everything is running, but unfortunately, I can't see anything because I have my areas are being set over my enemy. So I can simply comment that out, and if I do this, now if I run my project, I'll see that my enemy moves nicely in a horizontal direction. But the reason we used all the trig was because now if I tilt him and move him in another direction and run, he's going to move in a different direction. And if I take multiple enemies out, I can take all of these, move them in different directions, and we can see that these guys will all move according to their angle of orientation, which is nice. Okay. Having done that, what I want to do now is I want to change this program so that when I'm in PhatKids, I would like to actually create a function after I set my play area, so I can uncomment this out. So my play area will be set, and I'll create my enemies during the run of the program. And to do that, I will come in to PhatKids and I will add an event listener. And the event listener is going to listen for an enter frame event. So I'm going to say event dot enter frame. And I'm going to use this to update my game. So I'll say update PhatKids. So every time I come into this particular frame, I'm going to update PhatKids, and I'll do this again without my cap locks on. So update PhatKids. Good. Okay. And so now I just need to create that function, and I'll do that right down here. So I can make this private, and this is going to be a function, and it's going to have the same name, update PhatKids. And let's see, PhatKids is going to take in a parameter. It's not going to return anything, and so I'll simply open and close my curly braces, and since I have an event here, I'm going to take in a event parameter and call that guy event, and now I'm good to go. There is one other thing I need to do. Now that I am in Actionscript in an external file, an AS file, I need to go ahead and put these things in myself, and so I'm going to have to call in events, which is the name of a package, and I'm going to call specifically the event so that now I can recognize that here. If I don't have that, I can't use this event. That's done automatically for me when I code directly into the stage timeline, but since I'm in an external Actionscript file, I need to change that. So I will now create a second function, and all of the things that I use to update PhatKids are going to be in here. One of the things I need to do is I need to init an enemy, and that's where I'm going to call it from the stage. So I will call this guy, and again, this is going to be a private function for now. I don't know if I'm going to need to change that later, but private function init for initialize enemy, and not taking in a parameter, not sending back a parameter. I need to open and close my curly braces, and at this point what I need to do is I need to call my enemy. So I will simply say enemy, so lowercase e is going to be of type enemy, and we'll say new enemy, and there I go. So now I've got my new enemy, and I need to place him on the stage, and so I'll put him at the center, and I'll say let's say enemy dot x. I'm going to give it an x value, and let's say, rather than do it randomly, let's just put it at the center of the stage. So let's say the x value is going to be stage dot stage width divided by 2. And I can do the same thing for my y value. I just take that and copy it down, and now my y coordinate of the enemy is going to be stage height divided by 2. And it'd be helpful if I spelled that correctly. And so now I need to also change the rotation so they're not all pointing in the same direction. And so the rotation, we can change that by saying enemy dot rotation is equal to math. We'll do random again, and I'll times this by 360. You can think of math random as giving you a random percentage between 0 and 1. So you can think about that decimal value as a percentage. Since there's 360 degrees in a circle, that will work. It'll give me some random number between 0 and 360. And then finally, I need to take the stage, and I want to add this guy, and we'll say add child, and I'll add enemy, and I think that'll do it. Let's go ahead and see if this works. If I were to run my program right now, whoops, and I get some errors. Let's go ahead and see what they are. First of all, it doesn't like init enemy, so right here I've got update init enemy, and so I want to make sure that this guy is spelled exactly the same as this guy. So let's go ahead and try that. Now it does not like the way I spelled enme, so let's rewrite this as enemy, and that's going to be of type enemy, so that's got to change. And finally, now they're going to be bursting out from the center. And of course this will go on forever, or until my program crashes, because eventually that's going to fill up memory. So what I want to do is create a little limiting guy. I'll create a variable, and this variable will be, let's say, max enemies, and it will be a number, and I will set it equal to let's say 0 to initialize it. So max enemies will create down here. I'm only going to create an enemy if something is true, and what I want to check for is how many enemies I have. So let's simply say that if my max enemies is less than 11, so max enemies is, if it's less than 11, I'll go ahead and do this. So 0 is definitely less than 11, so it'll come in the first time. But the problem is now I'm not changing it. 0 is always going to be less than 11. So I'll simply add 1. I'll use plus plus to increment. And now when I run the program, I'll notice that I'll get exactly 10. And that's a good start for today. So that's it for today. Bye-bye.